Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I am your host and beat reporter. And today we are talking about the first day of the free agency period and what it means for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, there were really three moves of note for the Jaguars in the opening hours of free agency. The Jaguars started the day off, of course, by re-signing veteran cornerback Montaric Brown to a 3-year, $33 million deal. I don't think there's anything you can say about this deal other than good things. There was a heavy expectation. Those who I talked with who had knowledge of what Brown's market was going to shape up to be thought he would get offers around and potentially even north of $12.5 million a year. So for the Jaguars to get Brown at the price they did, it definitely feels like the Jaguars got a win on the financial side. Is it a healthy deal for Brown considering he's a number 2 corner? 100%. But, for the time being, Brown and Jordan Lewis are where the money in cornerback is, and really the only place it needs to be. Jarian Jones is going to year 3. Travis Hunter is going to year 2 of what will be a long team-controlled, rookie deal. The Jaguars had the money to spend that corner, and Montaric Brown always made the most sense to be that guy. We've talked about it. I've said before, and I've meant it each time, and I think it's still as true today as it was yesterday and will be as true tomorrow. Buster Brown was the Jaguars' most important free agent this cycle. He's not as big of a name as Travis Etienne or Devin Lloyd, but if they had lost Buster Brown, your cornerback room is, your top 4 guys are Travis Hunter, coming off a knee injury, only played 7 games, only really had 2 games of extended reps at corner. Jordan Lewis, coming off a foot injury. Jarian Jones, who in his career, he's been good both outside and inside, but he's been better inside and outside. And then Christian Braswell, who at his best so far has been a number 4 corner. So that would have been a sizable hole if Montaric Brown left. That would have been a hole the Jaguars very likely would have filled with an early draft pick, potentially even the number 56 overall pick. And I think that the Jaguars ultimately are in a position now that they signed Montaric Brown to where they don't have to force something at cornerback. They should still look to add to the position. Maybe even spend one of their, 4 top 100 picks on a corner. I'd still think that would make sense. But that guy no longer has to be rushed, into a starting scenario or anything else like that. So ultimately, I think for the Jaguars, this was a win. Getting Montaric, who will start across from Travis Hunter, you're getting in Buster. He signed for less money than Nate Hobbs signed for with the Packers last year. And there was never a scenario where Montaric wasn't a better option as a free agent this year than Nate Hobbs was last season. Eric Stokes nearly got Montaric Brown money. And I think it's very clear that Montaric Brown is on a different tier than Eric Stokes. We've talked about it. The only thing keeping Buster from being like a top tier, bona fide number 1 type guy is his lack of elite speed. Otherwise, he's exemplary. I think this was a really good deal by the Jaguars, and I think it was something that James Gladstone, frankly, had to do. Like this was one of the more important questions that he had to answer. Otherwise, on Monday, right ahead of the start of the legal tampering period, the Jaguars announced the re-signing of linebacker Dennis Gardeck. Now, at the time of this recording, we don't have, the exact contract details, years, total money, guaranteed money, whatever you want to call it. I can't imagine it's something eye-popping. Is it going to be the cheapest Michael's hometown deal of all time? Probably not. But I can't imagine it's something to where you're just taken aback by it and to the point where you think, that maybe this deal wasn't something it should have done. I just don't see that being a scenario that plays out. So for the Jaguars, bringing back Dennis Gardeck, it's important for a couple of reasons. One, you now only have one question at linebacker. You're about to have two. Gardeck played a really unique but key role for the Jaguars last year. He played strong side linebacker in their base defense, which, wasn't exactly an off-ball linebacker like Devin Lloyd and Foye Oluokun was. Sometimes he'd be on the line of scrimmage. Sometimes he'd be off it, but, still setting the edge or covering the flats. The Jaguars don't have a lot of guys like him on the roster. If that's the style of defense they want to play, and it seems like that is the style Campanile wants to play. Yasir Abdullah is a backup at the position, but we've really only seen Yasir make an impact on special teams in his career. We haven't really seen him with an extended run in a starting role. Jalen McLeod, it really seems like, that is the same kind of role that they see for Jalen McLeod, and I think that they want him to develop in, but didn't play a game during his rookie season. Obviously, he'll be healthy for year two, but, we are still waiting to see how he develops. There's no sample size to go off of from his rookie season. So if the Jaguars didn't re-sign Dennis Gardeck, they would have had to find another option for that position, or they would have had to really hope for a big year and leap in development from either McLeod or Yasir Abdullah. By signing Gardeck, the Jaguars really allowed themselves, some insurance and some built-in defense to that position. Gardeck will obviously be able to play it right out the gate next year, and then you can develop McLeod. You can even potentially develop Abdullah. Give them more time on task developing at the position. And then maybe sometime over the course of Gardeck's deal coming up, then, through special teams or whenever they have the opportunities on defense, they shine and they get that chance to maybe the next guy up there. But right now, there are just questions when it comes to who would be the Jaguars' next guy up in that position. And that's not even talking about in addition to what Gardeck let the Jaguars do on third down last year. On passing downs, he could move into, that situational pass rusher role on the edge across from Josh Hines-Allen. We saw more Trayvon Walker lining up inside, especially on passing downs as the season went on. And I think, frankly, that he is a big reason why that was able to happen. I don't think the Jaguars would have been able to use Walker in what's looked like the best uses of his career for a skill set so far without having Gardeck there as a pass rusher. So I don't think the Jaguars can just lean and rely on that. I think they obviously still need to do more at the position. But I think bringing back Gardeck was something that they had to do. Yeah, they still need pass rushers. They still need to add to the defense, but bringing back Gardeck was the smart move for my money. And then finally, Travis Etienne is off to the New Orleans Saints. $13 million per year, gets a 4-year, $54 million contract. From what I was told on what the Jaguars, thought that their price would be for Etienne, I don't really think it came very close to that. I think obviously if the Jaguars, if you're willing to pay that, you probably just franchise tag him. Right? It's not that much more. It's about another million and some change. So I think ultimately for the Jaguars, losing Etienne, is it a tough blow? Sure. But I think it's one they've also been very aware of for some time. We've said for some time that we don't expect Etienne back in Jacksonville. I got a very healthy deal from the Saints. $13 million a year. That is quite the deal for Etienne. He goes home. I think obviously, Etienne's a big winner in it all. The Jaguars, where they go from here. I wouldn't say count them out of the veteran running back market. I think personally you're more likely to see them add there than the draft another young guy. Rico Dowdle, style-wise, I think would make a lot of sense. Probably have to pay a little bit for him considering the market right now. J.K. Dobbins, another kind of power type guy. And then the two Tampa Bay guys, Sean Tucker and Rachaad White, are two guys I continue to think make a lot of sense.